I just bloody love it. It's fabulous. I remember being absolutely just blown away by this book. I think I'm going to love it this time. I really hope so. There has to be a Sanderson on this list. There just has to be. Am I being dramatic? Probably. Just because of that moment. We all know the moment. What is going on? Hello and welcome back to another day of Bookmas. Today I'm going to be talking about the 5 books that I wish I could reread again. Or not even reread, just read again for the first time ever. Either because, so a lot of these videos that I've seen, it's because you love these books so much. And this is true, partially. But also because I feel like for some of them, I could have loved them more if I'd read them at the right time. And I didn't. So that makes me sad because now I have a kind of like a tainted view of this book. Whereas I want to reread it with knowing nothing about it and love it instead. Does that work? I don't know because I can't do that. But that's kind of, I've gone with those as 2 options for the choices of these books. But I have 5 with me. The first one is Six of Crows. Shocker. But Six of Crows, I read that probably back in like 2015, 2016. It was the second fantasy book that I ever read. Obviously it was YA. And I just absolutely loved it. And it is the kind of grounding of what I love about every fantasy book ever now, if that makes sense. So my favourite tropes in fantasy books are heists and a found family. And I think that stems from my love of Six of Crows and kind of wanting to reread that or like find something that's similar to that. Because that's what Six of Crows is. It is a found family with a heist. The heist is getting a person out of jail. It's not necessarily an object, but it is the kind of like coming together, making a plan. Everyone has their own little job that they go and do, and everything fails, so they can't do anything of the plans that they've spent all the time planning. It's just great. I love heists. I think they're fabulous. And found families are my absolute favourite. When we've got that kind of banter between characters, I will love that till the day I die. If 2 characters can joke with each other and take the piss out of each other, and it come across well in a book, I love that book pretty much 99.9% of the time. So Six of Crows, I have reread that book actually, and I didn't love it as much. I am that person that doesn't love rereading books as much as I do the first time, just with the lack of kind of the unknown, I suppose, driving you, the tension that's kind of lost there. A lot of the time I don't like the book as much, but I can still appreciate it as being a good book. I would love to get that feeling of reading Six of Crows again for the first time, just to get that kind of excitement and that kind of like mind-blowing realization that this is such a good book, this is such a good genre that I'd never kind of delved in before, and I had no idea why I hadn't been in fantasy before because I just bloody love it. It's fabulous. So, Six of Crows, it's on there. Everyone should read that book. I love that book. The next one is probably just because at the moment she's on my mind, this author. I've just read her most recent book that's coming out in a couple of months' time. I read the book that's just come out that's to do with this series, and that's City of Brass. This one makes me nervous because if we're, say, in this scenario that we're rereading these books having never read them before, are we rereading them in the moment that we would have read them or now? Because that would change a lot. Because I read this book when I hadn't read much adult fantasy, so my knowledge of the genre was very minimal. I've now read a lot more in the genre, and I feel like that would change how I read this book. But I absolutely loved this book when I read it. I remember being absolutely just blown away by this book and trying to get everyone to read it, telling everyone about it, and I did succeed on 1 or 2 accounts of getting people to read this book. And I do still recommend it, so I hope that I do still like it. But I don't know, I think I would. I do want to reread this anyway, obviously with the knowledge that I have and the fact that I've already read it. And I want to see if I do still think it's a good book. We've got such good characters in there, like the friendships in this book are great. I love the political and world that it's in. It's detached, it's kind of like a portal fantasy, I suppose, where we have a character coming from our world into this djinn world where the politics are kind of completely corrupt and destroyed and falling apart. Basically this whole system is not working. We have a tyrannical ruler who everyone's afraid of. We have rebellious next in line. We have clans that kind of clash and are in war with each other, but like not like literal war, but like political war. They don't like talk to each, like we've got a lot going on, and it was just so good to have that. I do think it is that kind of slight bridge fantasy from YA to adult where you're getting that little bit more complexity in the plot and the political system, but it still has that ease and kind of content level of a YA book, if that makes sense. I don't know. It would be just so good to kind of love and have that passion to talk to it to other people as I did with this book. This next book is one that I have because I want to reread it, or I want to read it at a better time. I think I could have really loved this book. There is nothing about this book that I should have disliked, but for some reason I didn't like it as much as I wanted to. I think I still gave it a 4 stars, a low 4 stars, a high 3 stars, low 4 stars. But this is Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. Everyone who loves this book are people that I completely trust their opinion on and normally would love every book that they've read as well, or most of them. So I don't know why this just didn't click with me. I think it was the time I was forcing myself to read in a time where I didn't want to read anything, and I was kind of going through a fantasy lull. It wasn't until I read something completely out of the genre that I got out of that kind of reading slump. So I think I probably needed to do that, and this wasn't the time to read this book. I want to reread it. My plan is to reread it next year and power through the series because I think I'm going to love it this time. I really hope so, but I don't know if I'm going to. So I would like to do that reread that I'm going to do, but without any kind of taint on it that I have already from not kind of enjoying it as much as I hoped. It might have been because I had such high expectations because it ticks all the boxes of things that I would like. I don't know why I just didn't like it as much. So I would like to reread this with knowing nothing about it and just fall in love with it like I should have done the first time around. Okay, so the next one, I struggled to choose which one. There has to be a Sanderson on this list. There just has to be. But I have 3 possible ones on here that I couldn't choose. So I was thinking Elantris because it's the first one that I read. It's the book that got me into Sanderson. I would love to experience discovering him as an author for the first time because he was just so good, and it was the first super good adult fantasy that I read, I suppose. He's just top tier. He's on another level. He was the first author on that level that I read, I would say. Was he? Am I being dramatic? Probably. But I just think Elantris was great. It's not my favourite book of his, though. If it was going to pick my favourite book of his, that would be Oathbringer, which is the 3rd book in the Stormlight Archive. So I loved that, and I literally remember sitting in my bed for a solid half an hour just gasping at everything that was happening in a certain scene or a certain moment in that book. It was just so incredible. It was phenomenal. It was just I've never been that excited when reading a book than I have with Oathbringer. So to feel that again, I don't think I'll ever feel that, even when rereading it. I think I will get excited, but it won't have the same kind of oomph as it does when you're discovering for the first time. I think I'm going to have to go with that. But the other 3rd option was The Final Empire, just because of that moment. We all know the moment. If we've read the book, we know the moment, the devastating moment that occurs in that book, and I don't think I've cried like that ever, and I don't think I will. So that was the time to be alive, or not. And I would like to cry like that again, basically, is what I'm saying. So I think I'm going to go with Oathbringer just because it was phenomenal, but I could easily have put a heck of a lot of Brandon Sanderson on there. So the final one I have is another one that I just loved watching it unfold, and it is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. So a lot of people, I would say, prefer her Night Circus book. I read that when I was probably too young to really get it, so I need to reread that, funny enough. And it could also probably be on this list as rereading it in a better time. But The Starless Sea was phenomenal. You follow quite a lot of, I'm going to say strings, not tangents, strings. And you have no idea why you're following this many kind of plots and twirly bits. But then watching them all kind of twist together and come together was incredible. And I just remember being what is going on? When it was all coming together, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was my all-time favourite book for a very long time after I read that book. I just think it was incredible just watching it all unfold. I would like to reread this again, but it's not a high priority. So I just thought it was incredible and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It's a phenomenal book. It's a book about books in an underground world that's just kind of imagination explosion, basically, is this book. And it was phenomenal. I would highly recommend it. And that's all I have to say, basically. I would like to read all these books for the first time without knowing anything about them. I think everyone should read these books because they're all phenomenal. Except the ones that I didn't like as much as I would want to. But I think they're still going to be a phenomenal book. I have faith in those books that they will be good when I read them again. Thank you for watching. Happy Christmas. Please do like and subscribe. Comment down below any of your thoughts. And I will see you in the next video very soon.